Hello everyone, welcome to my tutorial. So in the last tutorial we saw that how to connect to the database, and in this tutorial we'll be working on how to actually create the data layer. In the last tutorial I showed that we have a package name utility, and under that utility we have this class and where we have put all the data source related information. Now the best or ideal situation is to have this information coming from a resources file, but over here I am not just using that, I'm just hard coding it over here. Okay, so that means the best thing would be to have a resources file and put everything on the database.properties. So whenever the program will be running, it will be reading the connection information from the database.properties. So now whenever we are ready to connect, the next step is to create the models. And if you can see over here in this package, I have two classes. One is the guest and the other one is the user. So let me click on the user, and you can see that I have user ID, username, and password. So the practical situation is, or in the most of the cases, the attributes that we are going to have should be representing the data field. Okay, that means we are going to have a user ID, username, and password in our database as well, with the name user table. And this user.java file is basically called a POJO. That means plain old Java object. The purpose of it is to represent our database object. Okay, so we have created the model. One is the user and the other one is the guest. Okay, and you can see that over here as well we have three columns which are representing the columns that is in the database. So now the next step would be to create our DAO layer. So what should be the DAO layer? Let's say if I come over here, user DAO.java, and this is an interface, and you can see that in this interface I have a method which is called the isValidUser. So the purpose of it is to check if the user who inputted the user's name and password is matching with the name and password in the database. So, and if it is true, if it is found, then we are returning true, or if it is not found, then we are returning false. Okay, and it is taking one parameter, and you can see this parameter is the POJO. Okay, so now user DAO, and if we come over to user DAO-IMPL, and in this case you can see that the implementation of the DAO interface. Now I have over here connection object, and at first this is null, and this is whole thing is within the try catch block, and within the try block I have got the name and password, and the name and password is coming from this parameter. And remember that according to the layered architecture, this is being called from where? This is being called from the service layer, user access service. Okay, now I get the username and password, and then I am going to have, or I'm going to write a string SQL, and the SQL is fairly easy. Select star from user, where username equals question mark and password equals question mark. So we have put this as a placeholder. And remember that in the theory we talked about the SQL injection. So if you are just going to put directly the name and over here the password, that may trigger some sort of SQL injection. So it is always good practice, or the best practice is to put the placeholder. And then we have got the connection, and as I said before that this class has this connection, and which is a static one. Okay, and public static connection. Okay, so that means, and you can see that I have put it over here so that you cannot instantiate. So we have to directly call the connection, get connection over here. So I have got the get connection, and then I've got the prepared statement and passing on the SQL. Okay, and then these are the p dot set string. So the prepared statement, they start from the index 0, 1, 2, 3 like that. So name is the second one, and then the password is the third one. Okay, so this is the positional, this is the position of name parameter, and this is the position 2 is the position for the password. Okay, so when we are done with putting these two information, the name and password according to their positional parameters, and then we are running the query, result set rs equals p dot execute query, and then the result set will return something if there is something named with this, like if select star from user where username and password is this, so it will return something. So if it is returning something, then we are saying that true because we find the information, and if it is something else, we are going to say that return false. Okay, so now this is being returned to the service layer. Okay, now if we go to the service layer, and you can see that we have invoked the method is valid user, and coming from this one is coming from the data layer. Okay, so again, to summarize, the data layer can be done whenever we are done with creating the connection pool and creating the connection, and after we create the connection, we have to get a connection, and then we run a SQL, and then we get the connection method, like the basic connection, and then we create a pre-period statement, we populate it with the parameters, and then this will give us a result set, and based on the result set we can iterate it, and there can be some other things done with this. You can see this the other examples within this tutorial as well, I mean within some of the classes. Anyway, so that's all for today's tutorial. Thank you.